comes down to a fight between you and me, then you are doomed to lose.
Keep the red flag flying here.
Hello and welcome to Socialist Night Live on Socialist Think Tank. We are here tonight with some special guests, and we will tell you who those are in a second. We are currently waiting on one of them to turn up, but time waits for no one, even the People's Assembly. So hopefully you will recognise the people on the screen in front of you, or if you've just seen us for the first time. I'm Paul Daly. Laura, would you like to say hello?
Hello, I'm Laura. Nice to see everyone.
Hello.
Hope everyone's having a good Saturday.
And also we've got Chantelle Lunt, who is now becoming a bit of a regular on Socialist Think Tank.
Hi guys, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, did you enjoy last week while we were all together on the with the World Transformed?
Oh,
and you were a
it was
roving
amazing.
reporter.
It was the most fun ever. We did our roving reporter. You did an amazing panel with Sasha, and it was just fantastic. And JC was on your panel, wasn't he?
Yeah.
JC was everywhere. I was like, Sasha was amazing. JC was there too. And then we all had a lovely time in the festival afterwards.
That's very Socialist Think Tank, by the way, to be like, oh yeah, and there happened to be Jeremy Corbyn there, but like, you know, he's not really the story. It's other people. You know, that's definitely the way we are. So yeah, it was really good, and thank you so much for doing it as well. Like, you just turned up and you were like, oh, what can I do? And we're like, well, roving reporter if you want. Yeah, I'll do that. You're amazing at it, having never done it before and just learned what Discord was. So well done.
It was great. Baptism of fire.
So tonight we're going to be talking about a few different things. I'm sure we'll be bringing a few of the issues up that we've seen this week. I think there are some ones that have really struck us as socialists this week, but we're also going to be talking about the People's Assembly and the Tory Party Conference, which is coming up. I don't know if we can get it going, but I was thinking we could call it elitist jamboree, because like, given the World Transformed last week was Trot Jamboree, well, they're elitists, so I know maybe it's not being used ironically enough. You know, elitist jamboree. Where is it? Manchester, isn't it?
It is in Manchester. I don't know why they choose Manchester though. Like, I don't know if anyone knows why, but I find it strange.
It's because they've got a really big conference venue.
Okay.
That's why there's only like a certain number of cities in the country that actually have the conference and facilities to like. We know this because we try and arrange them for a trade union, and there's like Birmingham's big enough, and there's a few places in London. There's one in Manchester, and it makes them look like they're coming up north. Oh, look at us, we're up north, 200 miles further north. That's where we are. So we're not even close to Scotland here. So yeah, I think that's why they do it anyway. Right, so you're involved as well, aren't you? You're going to be doing something. We'll come to this later, so just give us a brief description of your involvement in it tomorrow.
So I'm speaking tomorrow on the main stage at the end after the rally, and then on Tuesday I am speaking on two panels. One is women in activism, or rebel women as they've called us. And the other one is all about Priti Patel and the police crime sentencing and court bill. And then I'm doing a speech between those panels and taking the knee. And that one's on Tuesday, so busy.
Yeah, you'll be well prepped for those ones, and I think topics related to those are going to be coming up tonight. So I'm sure that you're well prepped for those ones. And Laura, have you made a decision on whether or not you're going down, or has illness taken you?
I haven't made a decision yet. I'm waiting to see how doing this show under extreme exhaustion makes me feel by tomorrow morning. I do have a lift. I'm getting picked up at 8 o'clock in the morning if I am well to come down and do a few interviews and things. I'm gonna hold off on making that judgment call until a little bit later though. I might go, but standing in the rain for hours doesn't really lend itself to to not feeling very well, I don't think. So we'll see. It's not COVID though. I've done tests just for the people who are giving me a lift to Manchester.
Chantelle just gave me some really fun information there. Those tests only work when you've got like extreme symptoms. Is that right? What you were saying before?
Yeah, someone told me. So when I had COVID, my COVID test, I tested every day. Like I was going to stuff every day and I was testing. I was like, I think that like I had headaches, was with COVID. All the lab flows were coming up negative. And then on the day that I did my PCR, it came up positive straight away. And someone basically said, wherever the like COVID virus is, the PCR test picks up on it better than the lab flow, and the lab flow will pick up on it when you've got symptoms and a little bit later on. So even on the day that I was coming up positive on the PCR, the lab flow was still coming up negative, and I was like, what's going on there? But it came up positive like 3 days later, so someone said the PCR is always better.
It's almost as if they made us take those lateral flow tests to force us to go back to work when we weren't. It's almost as if
Funny
they
isn't
wouldn't
it?
do that, would they? They wouldn't have just completely lied to the entire country and like paid some of their mates for some duff equipment. That doesn't sound right. Oh God, there's going to be people around the world who are thinking that they really mustn't. They might not get the sarcasm there. That is sarcasm. That is literally what our government have done. They have literally like made their donors much more rich by choosing them and got substandard equipment. That doesn't work, such as a test and trace package that doesn't work and cost many, many billions and will continue to cost billions into the future. Was it 32? Something like that. You know, islands cost 5 million. So I don't really understand what's going on there, but we are being absolutely ripped off by our government. We've got a few comments coming in. Elitist jamboree is going to be a thing. People are going to try and get a trend in, so that'll be nice. Elitist jamboree for the weekend. And also the Cat Crew also wants Tories are scum there. She said that quite a bit on Tuesday, didn't she? And look after yourself, Laura, from a few different people as well. Get well soon and stuff. Neil saying it doesn't rain in Manchester. It's the gods crying because the Tories are in town. And your mum wishing you feel better. You get well too soon, Catherine.
Thanks, Mum. You too. Mum's
not
well.
She's not doing well. Yeah. and Jane saying we had lorries backed up in Dover last year as France wouldn't accept the lateral flow test results and needed PCR tests. Fair enough. Yeah, good. And Mia's had a COVID jab this week and didn't have any nasty side effects, so that's nice. Nice to hear. So this week we've had some really strange things happening. So I'm going to start off by asking Laura if Cressida is a dick.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. I assume you're talking about how now if we get stopped by a police officer, we need to, if we're not sure, we need to either ring the police to check or flag a bus down to save us. Which I think is, solid advice. Who wouldn't want to do that, in a dark street? Well, I'm sure there are. See, this is another issue as well. If the Tories sorted out public transport, we might be in a position to do that. But up here, there's hardly any buses anyway. So what we're going to do? We're just left, It's just absolutely pathetic. Obviously, I'm making light of it there, but it's really not funny. It's terrifying that once again, every single time something happens, us women are the ones who have to find a way to make it not happen. It's all down to us to fix things as per usual, and it's really scary. And also this whole narrative of how Wayne Couzens was one bad apple, and
Can
you
you
know,
just
you can
like,
really
just in case like someone's been living under a rock or someone lives in a different country, this is Wayne Couzens's.
Wayne Couzens is the now convicted murderer of Sarah Everard, who it turns out had arrested Sarah on the night that he'd planned it all as well. He'd like, I had honestly the stuff that's come out this week. He'd hired a car. He knew exactly what he was going to do. He'd arrested her under the false pretense that she was breaking COVID laws, and of course, you know, what do you do aside from flagging a bus? If you try and get away, then it's resisting arrest. So what do you do? So yeah, he has now been sent away for life. He's a police officer, and it's just caused. Well, actually, one good thing to come out of it all is that it is raising the status of this conversation that has been being had for a long time, which is, you know, is the Met Police or the police force in general misogynistic, and are their interests to keep us safe? And honestly, I just think it's really scary that the amount of reports that come in about police officers, and the amount of those police officers who are still active in the police force, still doing their job while under investigation. I mean, the argument is that Wayne Couzens shouldn't have been on duty anyway. He had so many red flags and was being investigated for flashing and things like that. He shouldn't have been working as a police officer. And now, yeah, so it's obviously this whole thing started. Now they're saying if somebody does try to arrest you for something and you're not quite sure, flag down a bus just to make sure that everything's okay. It's a pathetic
Well, the bus
response.
is not really running then anyway. And what's a bus gonna do? Like,
and has
seriously?
anyone ever tried to flag a bus down that's not at the stop? Like, that bus isn't stopping for you, do you know what I mean?
And what kind of position is that putting the bus drivers in as well, you know?
So the bus drivers are the police of the police now.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
the police don't. This isn't a problem with the police. This is like inadequate policing of the police by bus drivers. Is that where we're going with this? Like, this is.
I mean, I
absolutely
wonder if the
ludicrous.
bus drivers were informed though, or the bus drivers just woke up suddenly with all these extra responsibilities, like guardians of women, just like if I see a woman flagging me down with a police officer. And come on, if a bus driver gets flagged down and there's a police officer there, the police officer's going to go, "It's all right, fella," and the bus driver's going to carry on because the police officer has a warrant badge. So in all of these scenarios, the police officer can produce a warrant card and can vouch for themselves, and people will move on. So it's like, well, the bit that makes me laugh is like the police. For those who don't know, I used to be a police officer. The fact that the police have like whole departments and like they're a bit like politicians, they have people whose whole job it is to make them look good. PR departments, people who write speeches, people who write statements. They've known this was coming for 6 months. They've known, I mean, anyone who was watching knew he was going to get arrested. We didn't obviously know the details, but they knew this. And the best that they could come up with was flag a bus down if you're scared, love. Like, what on earth? Do you know what I mean?
Do you think it's one of those things where they've done it so that like you can say the most stupid thing to stop people talking about the important thing? Like the real answer is there. We have no answers. It appears that the Met is corrupt. That's what it appears from, like, you know, the way this story is, what's coming out from the story. Are they trying to detract from that and say no? And trying to say like the Met is silly or something, or the Met have silly suggestions, or Cressida Dick has silly suggestions? Is this some sort of a weird way of diverting attention?
Possibly, it could be. And I think as well, for me, the idea that it's just the Met is like, no, it's the whole, every police force. I worked in Merseyside Police. I've recently put a video out for Ivy Forces when Sarah Everard had recently been murdered, but I just didn't post it because I was really upset about like my experiences in the police force. Obviously, I'm not going to go into them today, but just that kind of toxic, misogynistic culture that's throughout policing. And the way they said that they had that nickname for this guy is that, you know, the rapey one, and they all had this banter around us, you know, kind of predatory nature. That's in every police force. Every officer knows an officer who we've been told not to be alone with. Every officer knows an officer who's been moved for harassing women. Every officer knows an officer who will try and touch your leg if you're in the car with them. That's not just the Met, that's policing culture. And every officer knows that the police will do nothing about those officers unless they do something seriously wrong. So the ones I know who've been disciplined will have multiple complaints coming, or they've been caught on camera, or there's no way of getting them out of it. But the police's first instinct is always to protect those officers who've had those accusations, and that's because there's a culture within policing where it's fine to be like that. It's fine to abuse your colleagues, it's fine to abuse women, and it's something that men laugh about when we go into the staff rooms. Like, I would love for people to see what the back rooms of a police station look like, because it's like, I never even seen behaviour like that in school. It's horrendous. It's like sexualised and it's disgraceful, but they'll never come out and admit it because the problem is endemic and they have to like literally fix it from the floor upwards within policing. It's horrible.
So, like Laura, you were mentioning to me earlier on about there was a woman police officer who said very similar to what Chantelle said, not quite as scary, but about how there's a culture of fear of reporting in case something bad happens. What was that about?
Yeah, it was. Do you know, I'm forgetting her name now, but she's come out a couple of times on things like Novara Media. I've interviewed her. She was on the Woman's Hour as well, I think, recently. And she's basically trying to highlight what's going on and just saying, you know, women do feel like they can't report things within the police force. Like, with female police officers kind of just have to keep their mouths shut and get on with it for fear of the men closing ranks on them. You know, they all back each other up if anything was to happen. And she was asked directly, are you talking about yourself? Have you had things happen to you? And she says, well, yeah, but I've never reported them. I've just had to deal with it myself. And that in itself is just, within a workplace, is just unacceptable. And for people who are, you know, supposedly there to protect us, it's just unforgivable. And seriously, it's like there just needs to be so much more done. I can't even, like Chantelle said, it's from the bottom up, it's just rotten to the core. And I realise positions of power like the police do lend themselves to people who want to be in power rather than people who want to help. But there needs to be some sort of better vetting. There needs to be some action taken when there are reports. You know, like we've said, Wayne Couzens was known as the rapist, and he was still at work. Even after flashing in a McDonald's, he was still at work. People were laughing about it. And we know people, you know, I don't know if people have listened to the piece we did. We did a podcast on a lady who's involved in the super complaint. Her husband is a police officer, and he, you know, beat the crap out of her. He's raped her. He's used their child against her. And he's still at work. You know, and he still routinely visits the house, and his friends all back him up. And so she calls the police on him. They just go, oh, this is domestic love, you need to sort it out yourself. There are not enough words to describe how pathetic and how much they're letting people down. It really, really needs sorting out. Somebody needs to take proper action here, because you can't. It's not a good enough excuse now just to kind of look after each other and look after yourselves. You know, that they're in a position of power, they're supposedly in a position of trust, and they're not looking after anybody except themselves. And it's pathetic and scary, and I can entirely see why. You know, I worry that if something ever happened to my kids, that they would run to a police officer. Sometimes I'm like, well, surely they're the people we want to encourage our children to go to. If there's something wrong, you go and find the police. But now I'm like, do we do that?
Find a bus driver, you'll be safer.
Find a bus driver. Yeah.
Don't tell them, my kids. Go flag a bus down, kids.
Your reaction as well to that, Chantelle, about like, I wonder if the bus drivers union, you know, I wonder if they're thinking, oh God, well, what kind of training is there going to be for us to be like the overseeing eye of the police force? You know, if there's a dodgy copper, it's shocking, really. One person I was speaking to lately, we were talking about rape. This was just a conversation with a person in the gym, funnily enough, and we were talking about. He was suggesting that there should just be, if anyone is sexually assaulted, raped, or anything like that, aside from this, like, not really related to this case, but in general, sexual assaults and stuff, that should be reported to someone other than the police, and it should be reported to a different body whose first interests are looking after that person, because we have quite a few rape charities and that work with women, and women find this like more intrusive and worse to go through the case in court. Then some of them find it more traumatic than the actual rape itself. You know, they're the kind of reports we're getting from our justice system. That's not a justice system, is it? So, like, would that be something that could be implemented? Would that be something that's would be useful for people to have an external body that looked into crimes like that weren't actually the police, weren't there to prosecute, but were there to deal with the original crimes?
I don't think that's necessarily a bad idea, but again, it's taking the responsibility away from the police whose job it is to do this properly. Kat mentioned there that historically the police were set up to look after, big interests, and I get that. I see that more and more now. I feel like that's still true. But they, on paper, that's what they should be doing. That's their job, and we need to hold them to account and make sure they're doing it. But yes, you're right. The Women's Banner Group are trying to do a piece of work at the minute on this very topic, and the people we've spoken to who have been attacked said that very thing, that they'd much rather go through the attack again than go through the process of reporting it and being investigated, because it was so traumatic and upsetting, and they were looked at with suspicion. So yeah, as an interim, until we get the police force and the justice system sorted, that might be something to look at. I think that wouldn't be a bad thing at all.
Definitely. I know there's a few organisations that do it, because obviously the dark figure of crime is the term used to capture crimes that don't get reported, A, because people don't have trust in the police, B, because people are too scared, or C, because they just don't want to report it. So I'll have to find the name of the charity, but there are charities who do alternative reporting for specific crimes, i.e. hate crime, marginalised communities who really dislike the police, but they want to have that data there. But I think, if anything, if you had an alternative reporting kind of framework, that would show how many people have lost trust in the police. So imagine your alternative reporting framework had more complaints than the police were getting. That would show, how many people are being missed. Because if you look at the way Black women or protesters who are female are treated by the police quite violently, quite often to make a statement. What if those people are then abused or harmed? Are they going to go to the police? Probably not. Where are they going to go? Nowhere. The crime doesn't get reported, but they're still vulnerable and they're still victims. So I think it's really important that there's an alternative framework, especially because there's a lot of people, especially women at the moment, who are just up there like, I wouldn't go to the police. Like, I would never go to the police with a crime, and very rarely. Sometimes I point things out to them just to show them, but I know exactly what their response would be to me as an activist. So I'm like, why would I put myself through that? But then what? Who do I then report crimes to? Bus drivers?
Yeah, it's bus drivers. They're the heroes of the day. They're basically the superheroes of the real world.
Yeah.
So, Mia said the whole criminal justice system needs a radical overhaul. If the police was less authoritarian and focused more on actual crime prevention than just retribution, it would attract fewer of the wrong sort of people to the police force. Those who like power like the authoritarianism. It's a pretty fair comment, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. There's been studies that show, and I'll have to find this study. I read it when I was doing my degree, and it basically showed that the police are more likely to recruit people with bullying and narcissistic tendencies that reflect their own. So you've got like these narcissistic dominant personalities who then see that in the people they recruit and then just bring them into the force. So you're more likely to actually get in if you're like a narcissist and you're like this, you've got a bullying personality, and that's where I've honestly never seen so many really kind of dangerous people who I know I've never socialised with than in the police force. And quite often I'll talk to people about what the police force is like, and they're like, I've never like known that in any other workplace. And I'm like, I've literally worked in about 20 places and I've never known a workplace like it. It's a strange place to work, and quite a lot of the time, senior officers will rationalise it because police officers deal with a lot. So it's like, you know, it's a stressful job, it's a traumatic job, there's more acceptance of officers. So it's like they've got to blow off steam. So they'll let officers get away with a lot, and that's where that kind of really toxic, misogynistic culture is just overlooked by officers because it's like, oh, it's just boys being boys, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you think that's just the police, or do you think that's... Because I think there's a whole societal thing, like the whole way our society is structured, it encourages the wrong type of people to get to the top of, like I see that in teaching, and I'm not saying... Well, I've seen some really, really strange things occur in senior leadership teams, like, you know, I was at a school where they laid off a load of cleaners, and on the same day bought themselves iPhone 10s when they were the brand new phone, like for the leadership team, for the core leadership team. And you know, there's other things that I can't necessarily mention that are more related to what I'm talking about, but that idea of authoritarianism and just being able to do what they want, and people who I think our society kind of rewards the wrong type of thing. It rewards the wrong type of person. For a start, it rewards people who are really, really self-serving, who do everything they can to get ahead themselves. And it also rewards people who are willing to lie and are willing to make things up because it's accepted. It's like, oh, everyone lies on the CV. I don't. Everyone lies in interviews. No, I'm not. I'm painfully honest in interviews. I'm awful. People have laughed at things I've said in interviews. Like, oh, most people don't say things like that. And it's like, well, just be honest. Like, that shouldn't be part of our culture. Everyone lies in an interview. You should go in for an interview for a job, and it should be a bit of a mutual thing. Like, do we want to work together? Do I want to work in this place? But there's that power dynamic, and if you want to be the person on the other side deciding like who is going to be who's going to work there, then you know you're gonna have to be a bit dodgy and lie a little bit. And you know, is that what's going on in the police, or is it something much more deep and dark than that?
I honestly just think it's darker than that, honestly. Like, I've worked in places with people who are, you know, cutthroat to get to the top, but in the police it's sinister, and like there's just, I could tell you stories but I won't, but it's just like you will see people behaving in ways that you just like, oh my goodness, like how people getting away with this? And it's because for me, it's the blue wall of silence. So you call it the blue wall of silence. It's basically officers will never tell on other officers. Like, I told on other officers and was completely ostracised. But the key kind of incident for me was those officers standing up in court and vouching for him in the murder trial where he'd admitted that he had murdered her. And they're standing up and giving him character references. Even with Derek Chauvin, when he murdered George Floyd, his colleague stood in court and said he's a horror, like we want him going down for the like longest amount of time. He does not represent the police force. But our police force is so insidious. You've got officers, even after he's admitted that he's made them, he's just standing trial for it, going, oh, he's a good fella, he's just misunderstood. And I'm like, what? How are you giving this man a character reference? Like, how is that? You know, and for me, every single one of those officers who've given him a character reference, they need to go. Because what is their perception of a good person? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And everyone who calls him the rapist, and everyone who overlooked every single one of them connected to him, who overlooked a misdeed, who hears a complaint, they need to go because they're part of the problem, and that's the issue. There's officers who will overlook things and who will look the other way again and again and again, and they're the ones who have to go because we're just waiting for the one who's going to rape or murder someone and then go, oh dear. I think people are like, I've been saying this for years and years and years, and I've just got onto saying it quite mildly because people don't always listen. And now people are like, you know that thing you were talking about, Chantelle, or like a lot of police officers being really dodgy. Can you tell me more about that? And I'm like, yeah, police officers are really dodgy.
Yeah, good points there. We've got some really good points coming in the comments as well. We've got plenty of agreement, and everyone's saying that they are massively in favour of what you both are saying. Also, it says, smashing the patriarchy and fighting capitalism aside, everyone's hair is on point tonight. That's from Kat. Like,
Thanks, Kat.
I feel that she's just been generous to me there. My hair is sort of like a dead animal that's crawled onto it. And it's out of control, and I definitely need to sort it out. But I do appreciate that I can't. But everyone else's hair is definitely on point. So, um, yeah. And Jane Strange, how can you speak up for the character of someone who's done something that evil? Exactly. Like, what kind of person gets up and says, "Yeah, they're all right"? Bless them. Dear me, I can't get my head around that at all. It's unfathomable. So let's relate this to the People's Assembly, because I think that whoever was going to turn up, perhaps they've become stranded without internet, perhaps they've just, something's happened or whatever, but they aren't going to be, like, it looks like they aren't going to be turning up. If they do, then we will say something. But Chantelle, you are now representing all of the People's Assembly. Well done.
And all bus drivers, I just like that.
Yeah. We're all bus drivers now. We're all bus drivers. So, what is the People's Assembly? Like, generally, what is it, and then specifically, what's tomorrow about?
So the People's Assembly is kind of unifying the working class. So, we're all fighting, like, I'm BLM, I'm also, like, part of different organisations. You have LGBT organisations, Free Palestine. We have a lot of different kinds of breakout groups on the left, don't we? And it's basically Avengers Assemble. Let's all get together. And I don't know if I can swear, but fuck the Tories. Do you know what I mean? Let's all get together, because while we all fight for our individual causes, and while we're all, it's about being working class and fighting against the oppression, often related to policies and related to practices that the Tories have implemented. So it's, let's come together and let's speak out against the Tories. And what better place to do that than in front of the Tories? Let's hope they see us and hear us. So it's the Tory Conference. I think, did it start today? Or did the protest just start today?
I don't know. I think they're probably organising it. I don't think the conference has started today, but someone will let us know in the comments, I'm sure.
Yeah, so it's the Tory Conference from at least Monday, and the protests have started today, definitely, because I know Drive to Survive came, and I don't know if they brought the wagons and the horses, but they were planning to do a big camp house and a protest today. But yeah, it's basically, let's show them how we feel. So it's not going to be anything like the world transforms in terms of, we're all getting together to kind of, support one another and to speak about how we want the world to change. It's literally, we're all getting together, to highlight the issues, but we want people to know what we think of the Tories. Like, I've been really surprised that they turned up in Manchester, and thank you, Paul, for clarifying that that's just a logistical decision, because I'm thinking, Manchester's down the road from Liverpool, and they hate you as much as we do. Why are you there? I'd love for a Liverpool venue to just be the only option. I'd like them to even try and get into Liverpool for the conference. That would be quite fun. So yeah, it's highlighting some of the horrendous policies that they've implemented. Policies around policing, policies around immigration, policies around universal credit, just about everything. Even that's just in the last year. Everything they've done, and talking about why we need to get them out and why we need to continue to challenge them. Because if we want to relate this conversation back to this case, to Sarah Everard's case, who has been legislating to give the police more power and less accountability for well more than a year, whether it be through the Chiz Act, whether it be through the Police Crime Sentencing and Court Bill, whether it be through every piece of legislation that they keep on throwing to give them bigger powers to stop and search and less accountability. This is the police with accountability, and yet the Tories are determined that they won't have to answer to anyone. It's like, no, the police really do need to answer to people. So it's really important that when the Tories get to Manchester, they're not just met with passiveness, they're actually met with resistance. Because if you're legislating and quite far along in the legislation to silence protesters and to silence any dissent and any disagreement, we've got a really short time frame to tell them what we up north think about them. And I can't wait to do that. I'm like, I know if I see Pretty Patel, because she's going to remember me.
She's only tiny, isn't she? She's very small, Pretty Patel.
Is she?
Yeah, apparently she's extremely small. I think she's under 5 foot.
No.
Yeah. But Keir Starmer's really small as well. Like, he's about 5'6", something like that.
I
think I've never stood next to him, but they wouldn't let me, I don't think. But so yeah, I think he's only little. Maybe it's it's not a thing. So yeah, so you might not see her coming. You might not see her coming down the road. She might not be over the barriers.
I'll find that. I'll be on pretty watch. But yeah, I think they're more out in the open than Labour are as well. They have to like walk a little bit of a distance there in the building. So yeah, I'm gonna go camp out somewhere just to say hi to them.
That's another thing as well. It depends on the hotel. There are a few hotels right next to the venue. So there will be like hotels that they can lock down and then just walk straight across to. So that might be another reason that they choose Manchester, because like around there, it's kind of a tight little unit. There's an arena quarter kind of thing. So that might be part of the reason they're not there. So we'll expect tomorrow we'll get a lot of sub stories. So the media will portray this as, look at these people, they've done all this thing through the pandemic, they've really cared about the world, they've really cared about the country, they've done such a good job, and this is how they're treated by this angry mob. Do we think?
I don't know if they can. I really feel like the Tories have positioned. I don't know who can defend a Tory at the moment, because they position themselves on the wrong side of history for just about any major issue. You know, we've got no oil, we've got no blinking gas, we've got no petrol, we've got no food, all because of Brexit. They've blinking, they've stood and told people they could be footballers and then gone, oh, hang on a minute, it's wrong to be racist. And then they've defended the police tooth and nail and said they're all really good people at a time when everyone in the country is just like, no, these are horrendous people. We need we need you to protect us from the police. And I think, what are they really going to be championing at this conference? What are they going to be saying? We did well, we didn't kill like 1 in 20 people's nans. There's not much they did well this year. There's not much they can celebrate or say policy-wise they've done to help people. And yeah, it's just, I hope it's as awkward as possible for them, and I hope there is that chance to kind of highlight it. So the process being tomorrow, I just really hope that they do. There is that kind of interaction where they have to see the protesters and they have to see what people think of them, although I'm not sure it touches them because they're soulless demons, aren't they?
Yeah,
I think the problem with that is that is all factually correct, but the Tories don't deal with facts. They will just manufacture any story and twist anything to make themselves look good, and they say it so often that it just becomes fact and it gets reported in the media, the big media. So that's kind of a job done, and then the next thing happens, so we forget all about this. It's not going to be for, I give it like 10-20 years, we can look back on this and go, Jesus, they were so bad, and we'll all be screaming going, we knew, we were trying to tell you and no one was listening. And it was absolute, it's just I hate it because we can see what they're doing, we can see the lies, and we don't have the voice that the big media corporations have to get that message out. And that's another reason why independent media is so important, because we just need to keep shouting about it. And I really do hope that the protests get the attention that they deserve. I do worry that it's going to be spun quite heavily, isn't it? It's going to be horrendous. I think, Paul, you're probably right. I think they are going to go, oh, these protesters are just such awful people. How dare they? Our elected politicians are working so hard, and it's going to just be a horror show.
We saw that at the Labour conference, though, didn't we? With the people who were protesting, and like from what I heard in the hall, people were saying that they weren't allowed. They were sort of told by some men who'd entered for Keir Starmer's speech that they weren't allowed to leave. You must stay in order to make it look full. Otherwise, you're going to be kicked out of the party. This is something that I learned today. And then this is like a report. I don't have like verified sources or anything, so this is a bit of an anecdote. But they were saying that they felt like they were forced, and then they went to check with the steward, and they said, no, you can leave any time. And these people had just come in to try to keep people in the hall. And then the stories weren't about that, and the stories weren't about the police presence on the floor. The stories were about Keir Starmer being heckled, and then they twisted it to be about while he was speaking about his mum. It's a bit of a strange one there. So hold on, I think I've got someone.
Is it Ramona?
Oh no, we don't. They did arrive. They did arrive for a second, but Never mind. Never mind. If whoever it was, I think it was Ramona was coming in there, I would accept him. She's watching now. Just come in and we'll have you on. But yeah. So what are they gonna say about this Tory conference? Are the media gonna back them, or are they?
I mean, you're probably right. Like the media, you know what the media are like, and just like if one protester does something, they'll just zone in on like one thing. Do you know what I mean? Like the results did with JC at the Labour conference. So it's like, you know, they'll always look for an angle.
Hello, Helen.
Hello there. Sorry, it's very lastminute.com that I'm joining you. I've just literally been told about this meeting.
Okay. So you are currently live. You are being streamed. So welcome to the show. And
Thank you.
so do you want to do a little introduction of yourself and let us know a little bit about your role in the People's Assembly as well?
Yeah. So I'm a health rep on the People's Assembly committee. The People's Assembly is a big umbrella organisation that seeks to bring across the very best people from the trade union movements and the social movements. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get people to forge links with each other. We're trying to get people to share ideas. And basically, we're in Manchester at the moment because the Tory Party are having their conference in Manchester. So we're up here to unwelcome the Tories because the Tories have implemented a lot of policies that are very harmful for people. For example, they've implemented austerity. They've cut benefits. They have driven down wages, terms and conditions for working people. So there's a whole raft of things that they're doing that are bad for society and bad for people. So we're up here as the People's Assembly. We've got a load of groups speaking on our platforms. We've got a big demonstration tomorrow right through the middle of Manchester. And basically we want to give the Tory Party a message that we are going to unite and organise against them and against what they're doing to working people. So that's it in a nutshell, basically. So we have a lot of people. We're supported by the trade unions, Drive to Survive, so many others. WASPy we support, lots and lots of different campaigns. It's really vibrant up here. We've had a really good first day up here of events. We've had the Stop the War Coalition up here. We've had the climate emergency people. We're doing an NHS event as well on Monday, and we're doing a women's event on Tuesday, and just so much more than that even. So many I can't even reel them off at the top of my head, but it's just amazing. Really good atmosphere up here and really, really good people joining our events and speaking on our platforms and supporting us.
So earlier on in the show, Chantelle's already been telling us a little bit about, and she's speaking at quite a few of your events as well. So we've been talking about whether at the moment we're talking about how the media are going to receive the People's Assembly, because we know that the Tories have done these awful things, but we know that the media has always got the back. So are they going to spin it as being these nasty people coming along, these nasty working class people coming along and telling the Tories how bad they've done, they've had a very difficult year? Or is it going to be something that's really going to expose people, and how we're going to make sure that exactly what they've done has been exposed in a way that the media isn't doing, and I suppose politically it's not really there at the moment, is it? That exposure is not really there of the Tory Party.
All we can do, like I said already, is just keep uniting across the trade unions and the social movements and keep speaking truth to power. I mean, we know the press, like you say correctly, is on the side of the Tory government. We've had a lot of press interest actually in what we're doing in Manchester at the moment. And I think increasingly, so many people now are being plunged into poverty. I see it in my job every day as a full-time official for the GMB trade union. People are being plunged into poverty, even working people. 31% of children in this country are growing up in poverty at the moment. So I think increasingly people are starting to recognise that things aren't okay. We're losing the NHS. It's been taken from us by stealth. People are waiting longer for appointments. We've got nurses in this country going to food banks. So many things are going wrong at the moment that I think people are starting to recognise that, like I said, and we just have to keep speaking truth to power. We have to keep organising in the trade unions, in the the communities, linking up, sharing ideas, and we'll have to use different methods. It's very difficult at the moment in a sense of the parliamentary work. So we have to use other methods, protests, direct action, industrial action. We'll have to go use all of those methods in the coming months and years in order to fight back.
And originally the People's Assembly, like, always had the People's Assembly against austerity. Is it still that? Are we shortening it because we know what the People's Assembly is, or is it still that massive anti-austerity movement?
Do you know what? We're going to get even bigger. It's going to get even bigger because so many people now are flocking under our umbrella, and so many groups, like I've said to you already. And I think right now people are going to be looking for a way to express their dissatisfaction with what's going on around them. So we have the perfect vehicle really in the People's Assembly for them to do that. And like I say, whether you're an activist in a trade union, whether you're an activist in a community or whatever, you can come and join the People's Assembly, get in touch with us, whatever organization you're a part of. You'll be welcomed onto our platforms. You can speak on our platforms. We'll amplify people's voices. We'll link people together. And I think we're going to grow even bigger in the coming period, actually. We certainly have not gone away, that's for sure.
Brilliant. I'm going to ask Laura and Chantelle if they want to ask you anything or talk about anything now.
I'll let Chantelle speak.
I was just taking notes. I'm just really excited to be there. Helen, what do you think our chances are of actually getting in front of a Tory? That's what I want to do. I want to be in front of a Tory and I want to tell them how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I've been in front of Tories myself. I mean, I can tell you about a time in Kingston Hospital where in my union, we have cleaners, porters, catering staff outsourced to private companies. So I actually got in front of a Tory with one of my representatives. Matt Hancock was that Tory. And what we were trying to do was we were trying to fight for sick pay from day one for our members, because basically with statutory sick pay, I don't know if people are aware of this, you don't get sick paid for the first 3 days. So what that meant was our members were going into a hospital when they were sick and infected, and it was a cross-infection risk for patients. So we were very concerned about that in GMB, and our members started to campaign for sick pay for day one. So we actually, off the back of that campaign, we'd loads of protests. We had a big march through Kingston with all of our members. We got in front of Matt Hancock, and he promised he'd look into the matter. So we raised the whole thing with him, but unfortunately he didn't do anything. That was the problem, and we were still in the same situation with our members. And now, of course, he's he resigned from government some months ago, didn't he? So yeah, just getting in front of the Tories. Sometimes, unfortunately, you might not get the result you desire. But I think when you do things like when you the strike action in a trade union, you have protests, you have direct action, that tends to get the attention much more. And sometimes then if you fight back, you can get concessions as well. We've seen that with bad employers out there. We've seen that when our members do fight back all together as a united, powerful force, we do push them back. We do get concessions. So that's the best way. It's everybody coming together to make as much noise as possible, really. And that tends to get a result in my experience. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, you're just desperate to get in front of Priti Patel, aren't you?
I am.
We've got people coming in as well. Laura, I'll bring you in a second, but we've got people asking questions as well. It's like Kat's mentioned, would the People's Assembly encourage a call for a general strike? And Neil replied saying it's not really in your remit to do that, but would you be encouraging calls for a general strike or supportive of one if people went for one?
Well, I'm a trade unionist as well as on the as a health rep in the People's Assembly. I do believe that it's important to coordinate our efforts and to coordinate action. In terms of strikes, I mean, strike action is always ultimately up to our members. In my union, we're a democratic member-led trade union. So if our members voted for strike action, of course, we would lead that, we would coordinate that, we'd protect people's work if they go on strike. I'm in favour of coordinated action at the moment. I think it is necessary across the movement, actually, if we are going to defeat the Tories. So I'll leave that there. General strikes or whatever, again, like I said, lots of members across the trade union movement would need to agree to that before we could do that. But definitely we have to coordinate much better than we're doing. I think out there, I think the Tories and I think the big companies, they're all very coordinated against us. So I think we need to start building our strength as a movement to effectively resist what they're trying to do to us.
Just to follow up on that, personally, I think there needs to be a lot of education about what a trade union is, and what a trade union's power is, and how much power has been taken from us over the years, like Thatcher, Blair, and subsequent all the subsequent prime ministers. You know, like, people don't seem to know anymore that trade unions are people who work in a place. And I think there's a lot of work to do there, because a newspaper can print a story and be like say Kat's union, who's speaking there, she's a member of the RMT, and every time they go on strike, people are like, oh, unions are doing this, and you'll hear people going, oh, bloody unions didn't get into work. But if it was like, if they understood that unions were people who work in a place, then that's a lot more difficult to be nasty to and nasty about and say, well, you know, oh, people who work in a place have gone on strike. You immediately go, well, why are they on strike? When people see unions go on strike, you know, the media have hammered that word union. So do you think there's an education to do as well?
Oh, absolutely right there. And like, I even find when I go around and speak to my members in my trade union role during the day, they have a misunderstanding actually of what a trade union is. And sometimes I think it's reinforced by us ourselves. Like, they think that a union is just an insurance for if you have an individual problem at work. But what I say to them is, look, use your union properly. You know, your union, be active in your union. You know, don't just pay your money month after month after month. Use your union, collectivize problems, because usually you'll find in workplaces problems like, say, for example, no sick pay from day one, for example, or some health and safety issues will affect everybody in that workplace. So it's about being organized. It's about, I became active in the union because we were threatened with having our wages pushed down following a restructure, and nobody around me would do anything about it. And that's when I became a trade union rep myself. I thought, I have to do something about this because no one else will. So I'd encourage anybody to not just join a trade union, but to actually be active. You know, even if you can't be a rep, see what you can do to help the union. Maybe you can like put flyers about, maybe you can put communications about, you can be a workplace advocate, do something that's a little bit more, that will make a difference. So there is a huge amount of education to be done about what a trade union is, how to use your trade union properly. You know, and everything helps. You know, basically it's all hands on deck. And you're absolutely right, the members are the union. You're absolutely spot on there.
Yeah, I've been involved in strikes where I've been the trade union rep, and it turned out subsequently I found out that people thought I was being paid by the union to do things, and like, people weren't as willing when they went after me personally. I don't know, sometimes people don't get around you, and that's one of the things I always tell people, that, you know, just get around your rep, make your rep untouchable, because they're the ones who are going to be speaking for you. Just support them, and that's another part of the education. But anyway, Laura, did you want to bring anything in here?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the events that are happening. I know you guys are like really busy and you've had loads on today and you've got absolutely loads over the next few days. For anyone who's not able to make it, is the People's Assembly going to stream any of it live? Is it going to be available later for people to watch and share and spread the message?
Thank you very much for raising that, because we are streaming all of it live on our People's Assembly Against Austerity Facebook page. So please like our page, and you'll see absolutely everything on that page. You'll be able to play it all back, every single event. The big protest tomorrow, it'll all be live on the page. So please tune in, and please like our page. And Manchester won't be the only stuff that we're doing. There's loads of stuff going on there. And we're on Twitter as well, at People's Assembly. So we're on Twitter. I think we're on Instagram as well, but I'm a bit old for Instagram, I'm afraid. I don't know how to use it. I'll hold my hands up. But for any people who know how to use Instagram, we're on there as well, apparently. So please do follow us. If you can't make it to Manchester in person, just follow us on the page. It's going to be all good stuff. There's going to be a big wall of sound, apparently, and there's going to be all sorts of interesting, creative things. There's been a load of stuff that's gone on today that's all on the page as well. So check in with us and have a look. It's been pretty amazing.
Awesome. Well, we'll share all the links and everything after the show as well for anybody who can't make it. But yeah, if you can make it, go down to Manchester and join in. It's gonna be amazing.
Yeah, amazing. Come and say hi.
Are you convinced, Laura? Now, are you going now?
I feel like I'm gonna have to go. Yeah, I'll have some lemsip and then I'll go.
To be fair, Chantelle's going to be there anyway, so you'll want to party again.
Yeah.
Come and say hi. Come and shake hands, and yeah.
Definitely. We'll see each other tomorrow. We just need the weather. We just need the weather. Fingers crossed.
See, we've just done that weird thing where we met in real life for the first time last week, and it's like, it was so strange to see people in real life, and you're like, oh, I always find it strange guessing people's heights. You know, I've mentioned heights a few times tonight. I don't know, I'm getting obsessed. Right, so that's gonna be going on tomorrow. Go and tell
Monday
the
and Tuesday as well.
Tomorrow, Monday,
all
and
day
Tuesday.
Monday, all day Tuesday. Yeah, loads of stuff.
Excellent. So, that's going to be absolutely brilliant. I've kind of forgotten where I was going to go after this, because this has been a funny structure of a show, and I'm kind of thinking, where was I going to go next? Laura, can you remember where I was going to go next?
No, sorry.
Let's do some Tory bashing. They hate it when we do this, and because they hate it when we tell them the words they said, and they say that's Tory bashing. So Boris Johnson this week, he said about how forget about cancer rates, forget about life expectancy, forget about all those things. The true thing that matters is wage growth for lower earners. Apparently that's the thing, that's what leveling up meant. So it meant that some people on the bottom rung of the ladder get paid slightly more, so that they now have to pay national insurance, and that's gone up as well. And the fact that more people are dying of cancer, I think there's like 1,900 times more likely to die of cancer if you come from a poor background than it is from a richer background. And the life expectancy of the poorest people is dropping. Actually, in a place not far away from us in Teesside, it was lower than Ethiopia. And the people from Ethiopia of around that age had been through a famine. So, like, that life expectancy in Ethiopia would expect it to be lower, but in some areas of Teesside, the life expectancy is lower than Ethiopia. What do we think of Boris Johnson saying that those things actually don't matter?
Do you want me to come in on that, or does somebody
you
else?
can do. Yeah, it's a free-for-all now.
Yeah. So, I mean, we know what the Tories are up to, don't we? We've seen a rise in homelessness. 31% of all kids are now living in poverty. So we know exactly what they're doing. What they're doing is and they did it during COVID as well, actually. They've enriched their friends, the billionaires. They spent 37 billion, I think it was, of public money on PPE and test, track and trace and all these systems that failed us. And in the meantime, they haven't, people have been, more people, I think, signed on during COVID to have benefits than in any other time. People are desperate. They've now ended furlough, so it's going to lead to a lot more people slipping into poverty. So we know exactly what the Tories are up to. They talk about the living wage and the London living wage. I mean, I'd challenge anybody to try and live on the London living wage in London. It's very, very low, and rents and outgoings are extremely high. So we know that there's an agenda here to take from working class people, and enrich themselves and enrich their friends. We know that's the agenda here. So I don't think, and it's just up to us, I think, to make sure people know that, really, and to point out, what's going on at the moment in terms of, there's loads of statistics about it. And one of the things I'll say about poverty, it's very hard to stay healthy when you're in poverty. So you're absolutely right. It is the very poorest people, who will kind of get all sorts of illnesses and conditions, and you'll die younger, etc. It's really hard because food, warm shelter, these are like the basic building blocks for human health. And what we're finding is increasing numbers of people are losing those very basic things. So we're in a very serious situation, which is why I'm so keen and the People's Assembly are so keen for us to organise against this Tory government.
I'm going to do a question out based upon that, which is Laura and Chantelle, you're both in a really interesting position here. So Chantelle from Liverpool, Socialist stronghold, so what, and Laura from Sedgefield, where the Tories have taken over here, and our MP, the Tory MP, people seem to really like him because what he does is he wanders around basking in reflected glory. So he'll turn up at a food bank and smile, or he'll turn up at a charity event and smile, or he'll turn up at the unveiling of a plaque that Laura and her Women's Banner group managed to get up, the first women's plaque in the whole of County Durham, managed to get that one up, and he's going to turn up to that one and smile and think that it's somehow like his glory. So I suppose the question would be there, what is it? Why do people in Sedgefield buy into what Boris Johnson's saying? And why do people in Liverpool not? So why do people in Liverpool not? Let's start with a positive one.
I would say because the Tories have screwed us over so many times and we do not forget. So, they almost crushed this city in the 80s. The kinds of Margaret Thatcher wanted to promote the managed decline of Liverpool, and it took everything we were worth to get ourselves back. Plus the way they treated the city in the wake of Hillsborough, and just the way they continue to treat the city, whether it be the miners, whether it be the workers, whether it be the trade unionists. So we've got a strong working class community, but all of those things that, Helen's mentioned, like increased poverty levels, lower life expectancy, because some of the worst air pollution rates outside of London, probably near touching London, and quite a low life expectancy here. So all of those issues are quite prevalent here, yet there is very much a sense of unity and a sense of working class solidarity. And you just grow up hating the Tories. It's generational. So these are we're the sons, daughters, and kinds of children of people who worked in the factories, people who were laid off in Ford, people who worked on the docks, people who lost loved ones to Hillsborough, people who read the newspaper when Boris Johnson said Scots would like to wallow in their own self-pity shortly before they ruled that we were like 97 of us died unlawfully. We don't forget, and they can't trick us. They know that they can't trick us, so they don't make much of an effort with us. So they can't just avoid Liverpool and any conversations around Liverpool because they know that we're never going to believe what they say. It's a bit like the Sun doesn't really bother with us anymore because they know that we'll never read it. Whereas in areas where they think they can, nod to that populist vote and kind of sway people and charm people, they'll try a little bit harder, they'll have a go. So yeah, I think Liverpool's drawn a line in the sands, basically a we hate the Tories line, and you can't come here peddling your absolute nonsense, because we only have to step outside our doors to see what your policies do, and most of us have seen in our lifetime what Tory policies do, because they hit cities like this the hardest. So we resist that at all costs, which is something I'm very proud of. I like that we're a red wall and all socialists and all that.
Yeah, we love Liverpool. We also love where we live, though, don't we, Laura? And we're in a little, a very, very much a Labour voting village, at least, or an anti-Tory village. So, Laura, what's going on? What's going on up here?
Well, I think Sedgefield's a really complex beast, actually. It's not. I don't really think the people of Sedgefield have necessarily really bought into or support the Tories as such, but our history has been one of a neoliberal MP for quite some time. We did have Tony Blair and then his friend following that, and I think there were never really any. The Labour Party here was quite a closed shop. People weren't really invited in. It wasn't like a community building version of the Labour Party, and so people felt like all MPs were the same. No one really represented them. And then along comes Brexit and the opportunity for people to actually have a voice on something, whether they, understood it or didn't, or really cared about it. The fact of the matter is people went out and voted. And then our MP said, sorry, you voted wrong, so we're going to change our mind. And that really impacted a lot of people. And I think then the Tories came along and kind of had the media behind them and had the spin and, you know, said all the right things at the right time and really hooked into some discontent that was here. And now we have, you know, we're a Tory seat now. I don't necessarily think that represents the people of Sedgefield's thoughts. I don't think if there was an election tomorrow, they'd necessarily vote Tory again. And because we have seen that, you know, nothing's got better, nothing's changed. And in fact, our MP might go around to different things that are happening. But when it comes to really important stuff, he's not really present. And I think that the hyper local stuff like that is really important to get people engaged. And you know, like Helen was saying, we need to be working in trade unions. We need to have our little collectives all working together to offer something a bit different, because the Tories aren't. So I don't, but again, the fact of the matter is the Labour Party here as well, like, we don't have an opposition as such. There's nothing really to get excited about. There's nothing to shout about. And so things like the People's Assembly are going to be really, really important over the next few years, because they will offer a direction for the people's voices here. And so that's kind of what we'll be working on. For the foreseeable will be community groups, community organising, not necessarily having a label on that, like we are the Labour Party or we are this, that and the other. It will be a direction. And I think that's what we need to do to engage with people again, because people just feel not listened to, and that's a big problem.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. It's really interesting because I've had people say here that you know, well, you know, it doesn't matter who, you're a Tory anyway about Labour, you're Tories anyway, so why would I vote? I might as well just vote for the Tories as vote for you. I've heard that said. And also, for years and years, they were saying that you were liars and they don't respect democracy and things like that, and then sort of proved it with the Brexit thing. And that's the way a lot of people feel about that. I'm not saying that's necessarily what happened, but that's how people feel. And Tim Dredge has mentioned a certain ex-MP putting out a certain leaflet in 2017 that the Tories kept and used in 2019 might have been a factor too. And that was about how much he didn't like Jeremy Corbyn and so on. And, you know, it doesn't really work, does it? It doesn't really work if you go around and put out a leaflet saying that your leader's terrible. It's just bad politics, you know. It's
but then these people, the people who were shouting about that, and now the people who were shouting saying, well, you know, you should get behind Keir Starmer. And I'm like, hang on a second, I can literally find tweets of you demonising Jeremy Corbyn when he was leader. So you can't have it both ways. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm just going to go to a few comments. There's Paul is saying that capitalism is indeed feeding the rotten corpse, feasting on children's futures. Wow, it's pretty strong. Cat Crate and the building blocks of this detrimental effect on our health and well-being is largely capitalism. You probably knew this, but she thinks capitalism sucks. And she was a bit harsher in her wording than that. So yeah, right. Okay, so let's focus on capitalism for a moment, because I think what the People's Assembly are doing is very much focusing on the symptoms of capitalism and the symptoms of austerity, and, you know, highlighting all those things, which definitely needs to be done. It's definitely like, look, this is the real impact it's having on the world. But what is it like? Why is it that people aren't getting more angry about the fact that, like, over the pandemic we had the billionaires increasing their wealth by a third over the space of a year? Now that's astronomical. Is it like because they don't understand those figures? Is it because this is like not considered to be big news by the billionaire-owned media? Is it like kind of a mixture of these things, or is there something else underlying? Do people not understand the economy? What is it? And I know that's a massive question, so I'm sure everyone will have a different opinion. Chantelle, I'll start with you.
I think it's a case of people have just been so busy surviving. Like, you know, have you got a job? Haven't you got a job? You know, are the kids going to school? And it's just been the state of so many people. Like, so many people I know have just been destroyed in terms of the mental health and just the general well-being, and still haven't recovered. And so it's like, you you can kind of say small businesses have gone under. Small businesses have been tanked by the many, many lockdowns that we've had. And yeah, you know, Amazon's booming and previous small business owners are now delivering for Amazon. So it doesn't take, you know, a genius to see where the money is going and what's going on, and kind of how a real pandemic has been exploited by those in power to make as much money as possible. And it's sickening that the NHS is still being just systemically dismantled, and we're being pushed and pushed further towards privatisation. Like the waiting times just in the doctors and in the hospitals at the moment is just through the roof. But it's all really this well-crafted machine. And I feel like this is why events like the People's Assembly and to an extent the World Transform the week before are really powerful, because I feel like splitting us up, putting us all online, you know, closing us all off in our homes, it just can make you feel so disempowered, disengaged, and kind of disheartened in terms of fighting back. Yeah, you can see it, but you've got a gas and lecky bill that you need to pay. Kids need food and your house is freezing. So I'm going to worry about that first. But coming to events like the People's Assembly and coming together, you need that buzz, you need that kind of we're getting together as a class, you need to feel it as a community and go, do you know what? No, I do see it. And I'm going to find the energy to fight it, because we all need to find the energy to fight it. We need to kind of, it just feels like what next? And I feel like the Tories are just playing like this mind trick with us of, well, what can I try next? You know, I'm going to tell you all to lock down, and then I'm going to stand in front of my CCTV camera and get up close and personal with my assistants. It's like, no, you know, I'm going to tell you all to stay in your houses, and then I'm going to drive to a castle to test my eyesight. It's literally like the gaslighting us and then just laughing about it, and we're all just like, we'll take it. But I do feel like we're reaching that point of, you know, we're not going to take it anymore. We're not going into another year of being exploited or being told that our, you know, our national insurance is going up and universal credit is going down. But I do think it's massively, it's, you know, capitalism at its absolute worst. Every which way that they can bleed us dry for money, they are doing so. Every which way they could profit out of this pandemic, they are doing so. And they will continue to do so. The Tories don't stop just because it's the right thing to do. Like, I don't think they know what the right thing to do is. They only stop when enough people make a fuss, and when enough people stand up and resist them, which again is why the People's Assembly is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll do anything as well to get elected, won't they? Or they'll say anything to get elected. So, like, if you put enough pressure on, then they may have to change, and they may accidentally do a good policy once every now and then. Helen, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of factors, like Chantelle and Laura already outlined. You know, mixed histories in different parts of the country, mixed consciousness, and then overall consciousness politically is quite low, because we've had years of Thatcher and all of these sort of governments that, well, basically, there's just been a dumbing down of consciousness of people, and there's been an actual coordinated effort actually to take the Labour Party away from the people as well. That's very important that people recognise that. I know people have told me that years ago, Labour Party, Young Socialists, there was huge packed meetings many, many years ago, and it all just moved away. You know, when Kinnock came in, etc., there was an effort there to take it away from the class. You know, and it's very important that we recognise that. I think, like I said already, the mass media as well, there's a dumbing down as well educationally. I mean, the TV, etc., could be a fantastic educational tool. It's not that, is it? I mean, it's not that at all, you know. And I think as well, like Chantelle just said, it's people surviving, people just worrying about the basics of eating and, you know, keeping their houses warm and keeping the kids fed. I think people are really struggling now. And it takes a lot for people to get involved politically, to go to those late night meetings, to go to that extra union meeting, you know, maybe when they're juggling 2 and 3 jobs, because that's the case for some of my members in the hospitals. You know, they have to do 2 or 3 jobs to survive now and clock up 60 or 70 hours a week. And that doesn't leave much time to be active sort of in the wider movement. And the other factor, I think, as well, is that people, I've been lucky in my life because I've seen the power of collective action. And I've seen that within the trade unions, particularly, I've seen that several times. I've been lucky. I've seen what that can achieve. I've seen how that can push bad employers back. But many people won't have seen it. You know, they won't have seen it, they won't know, and they won't, you don't trust it until you see the power of it with your own 2 eyes, you know. So there's multiple factors there, why it's difficult for people at the moment, I think.
Laura, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go over old ground. I entirely agree with everything that Chantelle and Helen have said there. But I think, for starters, the system, the political system is designed in a way to keep working class people out. It's not interesting unless, you really have to want to know about what's happening. You really have to listen and learn about the archaic structures that are in place and how Parliament works to get involved in that respect to make a difference, which let's face it, no one's got time to do. Everyone here's already said, we're too busy trying to feed our kids, trying to get them to school on time, trying to do a day's worth of work, trying to just keep the bills paid. And so there's obviously that is a massive element as well. We are being kept down because, obviously that's where we belong. But that's for a reason. It's so we don't have the energy to fight back. So this system has been designed this way for that very reason, because we are the numbers. If we did all collectivize, if the working class did get together, we could take on anything because there's more of us, essentially. There's many, many more of us. But also I think one of the main problems is as well, we've been, since probably before Thatcher actually, we've been fed this myth of one day it could be you could be this rich, you could be this successful, and that's perpetuated with things like X Factor, things like that, these entertainment shows that do make you think, oh well, actually, one day I could be rich and famous and be a billionaire and I wouldn't want my money taxed. And there's always that hope in the back of working class people's minds that one day they'll get out and be better than they are, rather than having it told the honest truth that actually you find the way you are just not being given all the things that you deserve and need to be able to get through every day. And with that neoliberal agenda comes looking over the fence at your neighbour. What have they got? We've been pitted against our neighbours for so long now, and we, the successive governments have handily pointed the finger at our enemy, whether that's immigrants or people with a tiny bit more money than us, or all these people who are handily offered up on a plate to us as our enemy, actually just detract from the real enemy, which is, the powerful corporations, the governments who are looking after each other, rather than the people they're elected to look after. And so it is just keeping us sort of in this little bubble of just looking at what we're looking at. And it just feeds back into what Helen's been saying all along, that we all need to come together as a class. We need to be collective and fight back, because unless we do it in our masses, we're just shouting, we're just howling at the wind. But we can make a bloody loud noise if we all come together and do it together. And I really love the idea of, having all these different groups, all with different agendas, different fights that they want to fight. I love that. But then if we can all come together under things like this, that, and get together and fight things that really are important, that affect us all, then that's just got to be the way our country goes forward. And that is the way our country should be run, really. We shouldn't just have one dictator at the top who's got all the money and all the power and just tells us what's best for us. That's Fabian socialism at best, dictatorship at worst, So yeah, collectivism is the way out of it. That ended up being a really lengthy rant, didn't it? The length
it's been very popular.
I took notes. It was amazing. I wrote it down.
It was very popular. We've had a lot of comments. I know that sometimes you're like, why is everyone getting a compliment but me? Sometimes we have these at the end of a night where it's because I was like, they do. You just don't see them. There's loads of them. We were talking about this last week. We've all got imposter syndrome. But yeah, it's basically it's the billionaires versus the billions, isn't it? That's the problem we've got. You've had 40 years of think tanks. So this is why we're called Socialist think tank, actually, because there really can't, like, there's think tanks are funded in order to sway opinion, aren't they? but we don't have any funding, so we need lots of people in order to get involved, and that's our whole reason to exist, is for loads of people to get involved with this. And it's the exact same thing as the People's Assembly. It's so important to share these ideas and get those ideas out into the mainstream and get this way of thinking changing, because we just can't compete with the people who've got billions and billions of dollars in America, who are funding these things using their tax systems to avoid tax by like paying into a not-for-profit, which is basically telling people that they shouldn't tax them. You know, it's a really awful system. It's really bleak. I suggest you do some like, if you people at home, if you want some information on that, is it Dark Money? That's a really good book on this topic. It's it's about how they organise against us to make us think these really, really bizarre opinions that actually go against human nature, I think. So, like, the idea that, like, you know, we aren't a collective and we are just individuals, that's actually a very unnatural way to live, and it's a really horrible way to live, I think, and most people don't behave like that when it comes down to it, and I truly believe that most people are socialists at heart. Right, we're going to have our final words now, because we've only got like 8 minutes left. So, Laura, are you going to do the thing at the end for us where you tell us what to do, and then we'll also do a nice plug for People's Assembly. So I'm going to come, well, that's what I'll do. Firstly, I'll come to Helen from the People's Assembly. So is there anything that you would like to leave us on tonight?
I want everyone to get involved. I want people to sign up to the People's Assembly. I want people to check out our events. If you're in a workplace, I also want everyone to join a trade union, and not just join a trade union, get active in one. Preferably do both. Be involved in a social movement like the People's Assembly, be involved in your trade union, try and link up both. That's what I'd love to see happening, and just be active. That's my key message to everybody. You know, to get out there. That's what I want to leave people with.
Brilliant, and thank you so much for your contribution. You've been absolutely amazing, and our viewers have really enjoyed you as well. So thank you so much. And we, after this show, what we do is we stay around for a couple of minutes and have a off-air chat just for a minute to say bye-bye and things like that. So when I say bye to the audience, please don't go anywhere, and we'll have a little chat with you. Next, I'm going to come to Chantelle, who's an absolute superstar as always.
Hey, so yeah, just to echo what Helen has said, I feel like sometimes people are waiting for the right moment to get involved in activism, and there will never be a moment as right as this. Like, the Tories are literally taking away most of our freedoms, and they're systematically destroying the working class. Like, literally, if it's just as much as going online and watching a protest at first, or going online and watching the People's Assembly, or coming to something and standing in the background, there is a place for absolutely everyone in the working class movement. Please get involved in any way that you can. You know, Helen's spoken about joining your union, but being proactive in your union, or going to, you know, your local CLP meetings. Just get involved in any way you can, whenever you can. Do you know what I mean? I know we're all really, really busy, but I got involved in activism 18 months ago because I was angry at the police for being racist. I'm still angry at the police this week for being sexist, but I've never looked back, and I've kind of found welcoming, like-minded people, as well as people who challenge my thinking, and as well as people who grow me as a person. So please get involved, because all of our rights are being stripped away from us as we speak, and we need to fight for them. And as everyone here has said, the Tories do not give anything away freely, so we need to be fighting and bringing the party to them, which we will be this weekend, won't we, Helen?
Thank you so much, and you've been amazing as always. And thank you so much for last week as well. Like, you know, I know we said it at the beginning, but you're the best roving reporter we could possibly have hoped for. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Laura.
Yeah, just thanks to Helen and Chantelle so much for coming on the show tonight. It's been brilliant, as always. Absolutely love it. Even though I'm full of cold, I really enjoy these chats. Yeah, really, really seriously, get on to the People's Assembly Facebook over the next few days. Watch all of the things that they've got coming up. It'll really get you enthusiastic about the movement, which is what we need. Share it far and wide, get people involved. join Socialist Think Tank. You can become a member of Socialist Think Tank for free. We are socialists, so you don't get anything special if you contribute. However, if you do decide to donate and contribute, it is very much appreciated, so we can continue to make these shows for you. We have Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, Helen, all of the ones that I don't understand either. We're everywhere, so come and find us, get involved. If you become a member, you sort of join our Discord chat and get behind the scenes footage and all of that, and then we drag you onto one of these shows, and then we never let you go. So please do join us, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Thank you so much, and thank you to our viewers and our listeners on podcast as well. And we will be seeing you all very, very soon. So I'll say thanks to Kat, Jane, Mick, Neil, Paul. I'm just going to read up a few just so I can do a few. And if I miss you, then that's because there's lots and lots of comments. Tim. And I think I'll leave it there. So thank you very much. Thank you for contributing. It's your comments as well that make this show so enjoyable for us to do, because we can see your comments and everyone at home can see the comments, and it's really nice to see you interacting with each other across different platforms as well. And so keep on doing that, please, and tell everyone that you know who might be interested to have a watch and have a listen or have a share or whatever, and get involved. And take care, everyone, and we will see you soon.
Keep the red flag flying here.